Let's get started and talk a little bit about SheFighter.
So thank you.
No.
So thank you so much for bringing me to Google. Actually, Google filmed a documentary about SheFighter last year. But it's funny, you can find it on my website, shefighter.com. But it's funny that they filmed me running all the time in the street. And I told them, I'm not a runner, I fight. And they're like, no, we want more of you running. I'm like, fine. We've done a lot of running. So if you see like just me running, that's Google filmed that documentary about
That's
it.
called the Google marketing pixie dust that was sprinkled on the on the whole thing.
But I think they wanted to show more of Jordan, the history, the streets, the people, because they were all looking at me like, why is she running at 4 a.m. in the morning? Yeah. But my name is Lina Khalifeh, and have you heard of the Khalifa Tower in Dubai, the tallest one in the world? I don't own it, so you just if I own it, I would come with a private jet, like just land here. I started SheFighter in 2012 with the idea of solving problem for violence against women in the Middle East. Honestly, I had enough. I had enough from women telling me we cannot do anything. We have no solution, we're weak. I've heard it a lot, especially growing up and being raised in the Middle East. So what I did, I had background in Taekwondo. I started 5 years old training Taekwondo. And the reason why I started it, because my parents want me to stay away from the streets. I used to beat up boys a lot. And they're like, okay, we need Lina off the streets. So if you see that scar, it's actually one of the fights with the boys. And they enrolled me in a Taekwondo school, and from that time I got so addicted to martial arts. I loved it. It became like part of my personality, my identity. And that's where I wanted also later on to start something for women.
Yeah, that's incredible. So speaking of getting into fights with boys,
all the time.
Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you have faced along the way in starting SheFighter and in helping grow it.
Yeah, definitely. So I started SheFighter because my friend got beaten up and abused by her brother and father when I was at the university. She was just my colleague. And I got really upset. I told her, why don't you report? Why don't you do something? And she said, we cannot do anything. Women cannot do anything. I got so pissed off. I said, I don't have a lot of power and knowledge, but what I know is training women how to defend themselves, how to stand up for themselves. And I started at the basement of my parents' house, and it was before it was in 2009. And in 2012, I took it very seriously, and I started SheFighter, the first self-defense studio in the Middle East for women. And everyone was against the idea. A lot of haters everywhere, right? And they said, it's not going to work. Women in the Middle East are not interested. They're just interested in cooking and just, gossiping maybe or whatever, fashion. And I told them, no, I believe that's right. And that's where I did not care about others. It's important for you to know that you do not listen to people who want to put you down. You always have like small support. It doesn't matter. Just hang on with the support and just look at the bright side all the time. But a lot of challenges, of course, as you start growing. The more you grow, the more challenges it becomes, and the bigger it becomes dealing with market and mostly male-dominated country like Jordan. So it started from like an idea to this huge business that we are franchising globally. And then the problems start getting bigger and bigger. They want to shut me down. They want me off the market. I'm changing women's lives. I'm changing the way they think, and they just want me out. So one of the stories is I got sued by, so it's a suit case, by a man who happened to be a lawyer. His wife was training at SheFighter for 2 years. And she had an argument, and she used self-defense against him. She punched him in the face, and he got so upset because we taught her how to stand up for herself. And he sued us for teaching her self-defense. And he said, she cannot teach that to women. And I thought it's a joke, but it wasn't a joke. And I had to deal with it legally. I called my lawyer, and I told him, there's a stupid guy who sued us. Now what? And he said, let's work on it legally. I'm going to call him and see what we can do from there. Because it's a still male-dominated country. that will support men, and they do whatever it takes to protect the family. For them, if like SheFighter is kind of ruining some of the families, or like getting more divorces, women standing for them, women have voices. It means like they can put me in jail for that. So you need to act smart when you work in these areas. You cannot just keep fighting, being like you need to be smart. You just need to be smart. So we said, we're going to talk to him. We're going to have a meeting with him. And we brought him. And he's like, we told him, what do you want? Like, let's not get this to court. And he said, I want my wife to be out of SheFighter. I don't want her to come to train anymore. I'm like, problem solved. It's going to be done. And we called her and we told her that, you have to solve your problems at home, dealing with your husband, but we cannot have you at SheFighter anymore. But we had to work on this in a smart way to protect the business from haters like him.
Yeah. And actually, that leads me to my next question, which is, you're a social entrepreneur who started small but has really sought to scale.
Yeah.
And you've done these trainer of trainers, right, which is how you've been able to really reach a really mass audience. Yeah. I'm wondering, when you close your eyes and you really envision, your grand vision for SheFighter, in 10 years, what does that look like? Where do you hope to achieve? What kind of change do you hope to affect?
Yeah. So definitely, the more I inspire people, I feel like I'm doing my purpose. I feel like I'm alive. I feel I'm not just a number in the world. And my goal is to get to 1 million trainers globally. Now we've done 500 trainers certified, and they are doing their own workshops and trainings in many countries like Germany, South Korea, in Africa, Mauritius, in Portugal, all over the world. And we're bringing it to United States. So I'm excited to partner up, train trainers, just grow this movement of course, the training is not just physical. We have a lot of training psychological. We call the philosophy of SheFighter, is how to actually avoid a lot of problems in your life by just being more self-confident and believing in yourself and just standing strong for yourself and others as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I guess along those lines, you mentioned kind of this internal work that you ask people who come through the program to engage in, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious, what kind of internal work do you do, to maintain your motivation especially when you're thinking about challenges that you're facing, like the ones you described, right?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of processes do you have?
So I realized through my journey building SheFighter, it's not just building SheFighter. I changed a lot. I changed in my mind. I changed in the way I view life. I started meeting different women and people all over the globe. And I started growing my mind and expanding my mind a lot. That I felt life is so beautiful just knowing that there's a lot of mystery in it and how you can solve everything and how you grow internally. So martial arts helped a lot on being more focused and disciplined. But I realized as I started growing, my thoughts actually affect a lot of decisions that I have to make in the future. So I started to think about positive things all the time. Positive doesn't mean that I have to be happy all the time. It's just my thoughts are more brighter than darker. And if I have a dark thought, I would think about it, like, why do I get that dark thought or emotion? And I started implementing it in my life, and good things started to be attracted to my work. Other than I realized in my students, my journey, empowering women as well, some students, the women, they started having some ego problems. They become so strong, stronger than men. They can take down any man. They're so strong. They got so addicted. That's good, but they had a problem of ego. Of course, not all of them, but some of them that they felt that they're better than others. And it's important that they keep this humbleness. You know your skills. Like, I know my skills. I know my strength, but I still do it for good, not to hurt others, and not to use it for violence or for just proving to others that I'm the best. You don't have to prove to others. You know yourself. A lot of my students, they started challenging me, like, do you want to fight?
Oh, wow.
Because they want to test if they're stronger than me. And then I learned it's an ego talking. It's not them. They change to become this person who just want to fulfill the ego because it gives them satisfaction. So they have a problem with self-confidence. For me, if you want to prove to others and yourself that you're good, you have a problem with your self-confidence. You don't know who you are, and they need to know who they are. So I started talking more, training about how to discipline your ego, because the ego wanted to, it want to be fed, like you want to buy the best car, you want to buy the best, house. Just it's ego, talking to you. I will feel good if I buy this. I will feel good if I win this champion. I will feel good if I, and it's just, it get me thinking, like why these girls are behaving in that way. And then I did like all this philosophy, and I implemented it in my training, the philosophy of SheFighter. And it talks a lot about thoughts, ego, discipline, and how you create your future, and all of that. So yeah.
I really cannot think of a better place to deliver this message than Silicon Valley. My goodness. I just very briefly, I wanted to ask if you could share a brief story of somebody in your program that you think really exemplifies that transition, that evolution of coming in, maybe not feeling super empowered, but then, coming out the other end, and then, being kind of what you hope to see. And then we'll open it up to audience Q&A. So I promise.
Yeah. So one of the stories, one of the girls we had training at SheFighter, she in Jordan, she got attacked at the elevator in her own building by a stranger. And she said it was daytime, I was just heading back from work, and there's a guy who pushed her in, he choked her, and he wanted to rape her. And that guy, he was in his mid-20s, he's big, and she freaked out. The first thing she said, I freaked out. I had like a pepper spray in my bag, but everything fell. I could not think, and all I have is just myself. And she could not even scream for help. So what she did, she started pushing him. She said, my mind started reacting because she's trained, right? So she started pushing him away from her until he felt like she's resisting a lot. So he escaped from the elevator. She got angry and chased him to the streets. And she asked some men to help her. She said, like, thief or whatever, and everyone, like, of course, it's a macho society, right?
Yeah.
They all jump in on that guy, And she started, what she did, she started hitting him in the street because she's angry. He touched her. And the police came after a while. You know how the police in America, they have just donuts, maybe? In Jordan, they have falafel, so not much different, but they came after a while. She put charges against him in court for sexual assault. He put charges against her for beating him up in the street. But she won the case, and he got 3 years in jail for assault, So that's one of the stories. There's so many others, of course.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely. Well, that was some, she really turned the situation around. Okay, so now we'd love to open it up for audience Q&A. What questions do you all have for Lina?
The story that you told earlier about the husband that got mad at the wife for hitting him, what other alternatives do you think of? Because I almost it's interesting that you made the decision to adhere to what he said just to save your business, but I'm wondering if that's really goes against kind of the core values. So just curious, what went through your head and what other alternatives that you thought? Because I think that's a tough decision. I don't know if I would have made the same, but
for sure. It will be, if I had to, of course, deal with him, let's say, stand against him and just deal with it in court, it's going to take years. And he's a lawyer, so he has connections inside the court. That's something else. Usually men have, in the Middle East, I don't know if you have traveled, but it's mostly about friends, making friends. I think it's everywhere, but mostly it happens a lot between men because they have relatives in the government, so they know people. And sometimes just standing up against that will just drain your energy. It's going to get you to a point that you want to shut down everything. And it's going to fill you with more anger because the society is not helping, right? So you think about the smart decision. Of course, we called her. When we called her, she said, I want to focus on my family. It was her decision. Like, she can get a divorce if she wants. But for us to protect our students and business, we have to act smart. And sometimes just going against them, it means that you're losing a battle. So in that environment, also, for example, if you go in the street and say, I am asking for women's rights, they can easily kill you, Like, it's not an easy environment. And if you want to spread the message on the long term, you need to exist for a longer term. You cannot, go do something crazy and suddenly, what's your use in life if they actually took you in jail? Or you're not going to empower a lot of other people. So you need to be smart. You need to make a lot of friends. Even like you cannot go, let's say, just angry at the society. I worked with Syrian refugees a lot. Also Syrian refugees, they have a lot of problems that they have child marriage. And of course, for me, it pisses me off to see a child, 12 years old, getting married, right? So, but what I can do, I cannot go and tell them, you're doing something wrong. You need to change that. It's a culture. You cannot change the culture in one day, or it might take years, you know? And what you do is just you give examples, you inspire them, you tell them that, you know, you empower the little girls, that one day they can be something. Because all they see is just a crisis, right? Like just a war, or their father probably is married to 20 women, I don't know. They have a lot of problems. I worked with them for like 4 years, and you cannot go and just, you know, go against them. Like, you're doing something wrong. You cannot do that, because they will never listen to you. They will leave. They would say, who are you to tell us, you know, to change that culture? But what you want to do, you want to act smart. You want them to love you, like really love you, so they can listen to you, so they can look at you as a role model. And that's what I do, how I do it. I have a lot of men supporting me in Jordan, and they keep telling me, you're our role model. Because for me also, having the men's support is important, because it's a male-dominated, you know, Middle East is very male-dominated, and you need men also to back you up sometimes. They have like friends, and it's fine. I have a lot of support from women, I have from men. Like, I had a lot of problems with the government, but who helped me with it? It was all my male friends, and they're like, we need to stop these haters, and we're gonna stand up by you because you're doing something good. And you need that support. And you need to change slowly, you know, step by step. You cannot go and say, you know, like, we want, you know, our right, shouting, because no one will listen to you. So it's just different, you know, being raised in the Middle East, it's different. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your talk. So this is pretty ironic, because the end of this month I'm going to Jordan too.
Oh,
and
great.
First time ever going to Middle East. So yeah, just wondering, like, I know I don't know if it's true, but the stereotype that the Middle East, it's a little dangerous, and people have been telling me.
Safe.
Okay, so yeah, I was wondering, like, was that what inspired you to get into self-defense? I don't know. And then, do you have any tips for a woman going to Jordan, especially someone who doesn't look Jordanian?
Yeah, you would love, definitely, Jordan love tourists a lot. And yeah, so you want to go to Dead Sea, Petra. There's a place, you know, the movie Martians? It was filmed in Jordan, because it's all desert and we're supposed to be Mars. I don't know. And there's a camp there. It's next to Petra, where you can, they have this, it actually was started with the film of The Martian, and then they left it there. So they're like, it's like rounded houses where the ceiling just open and you see the stars at night. So definitely you do a tour in Jordan. They love tourists, and they're very friendly with tourists. I mean, I'm a local, so it's different. I mean, I know their, you know, rules, inside rules, and I'm just, that's why I know about all the domestic violence we have. But with tourists, they're just very welcoming. You're gonna see that. But don't think now it's hot in the Middle East. It's actually, with climate change, it's changing. We have a lot of rain, flash floods, and you definitely want to be careful of flash floods. If there's rain, don't go to Dead Sea or Petra, because there's going to be like just sudden flash floods. Yeah. But enjoy the food. The food is good.
No, I think it's interesting what you mentioned, like the juxtaposition of, you know, the safety that maybe one encounters out living in the streets or in the world, yeah. But then the very real dangers that sometimes exist behind closed doors, right?
Yeah, it is.
Because domestic violence, there's a huge incidence of it everywhere,
yeah.
Including the United States.
Yeah,
so certainly not immune of it here, but I think, you know, it just speaks to kind of, you know, we think sometimes about maybe like the situation that you described of like somebody literally attacking you, right, and trying to assault you and sexually assault you. And obviously those situations are also real, but there's just such a myriad of different nuanced, you know, situations where you might find yourself actually wanting to have these skills, and maybe you didn't think that, you know, it's not like a scary situation all of a sudden, but something that built over time. So anyway, I think that's an interesting point that the distinction to be made, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get in two couple more questions really quickly, and then we can move on to the. Okay. You have a question. All right, Anthony.
So I know
let's get
that
it.
I know that you mentioned that you were planning to move your business over to the United States. Have you faced any challenges here in the United States while doing that?
So, should I mention? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm also Canadian. I have a Canadian passport. That's why it's easier to move. But I was in Seattle, and I usually don't have any problem coming to the United States. And I was stopped by the customs
Yeah.
or the passport control, asking me for 2 hours, like 100 questions, and being so rude, just being so rude. But it's just. It was just this experience about the police, maybe in America. I'm not sure later on, but I still keep the positive side of everything. I mean, I've been to Pakistan, I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to many, many countries. I know that you're gonna face sometimes obstacles. It's fine, it's everywhere. You know, you have problems, but it's just how you look at it later on. Sometimes you have to deal with it. You know, like just deal with it. Just be patient. Do not really argue a lot, and try to get out of it. Yeah.
Let me change the framing of that question a little bit.
Yeah.
And ask you about it from a business perspective, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because again, social entrepreneur,
Yeah.
you're out there, you're trying to build partnerships, you're trying to get support and meet the right folks, right?
Yeah.
Like even already in this room,
Exactly,
you know,
yeah.
there's a couple of people who are interested in working with you. What are some of the challenges that you're facing, or maybe some of the how can we as an audience right here in the United States, support you as you try to grow your business and bring it here to the United States?
Sure. For example, I've never lived in the United States. That's number one. So I would love to know more about who I can connect with, or like if there's like working spaces for women, or we can partner up, or all these important things, how to build my team in the United States. I mean, in Seattle, there were like a couple of girls who just came to my session, and they're like CrossFit.
CrossFit.
And they're like, we want to take your course.
It's a very enthusiastic audience. Yes,
and they're like,
yes.
we've been following you a
Yes.
lot, and it's important for me to create all these women who love first fitness, who love to empower other. You don't have to have any background also in fitness, but if you want to change other people's lives, or you want to empower them through training, self-defense, and teaching to younger generation, I would just be happy to communicate, coordinate together.
Yeah.
And
So I just wanted to put that out there for folks in the room, or folks who may be watching on live stream or later on. If you're interested, make sure to reach out.
Yeah, definitely. You can reach out on website SheFighter.com,
Yes.
or we are on all social media. So at SheFighter Instagram or Twitter.
Can't beat that Instagram,
There's a lot of videos on Instagram.
Slide into the SheFighter DMs. That's what she's saying. Okay, let's take one more question. We have a couple more minutes. Okay, we got one over here.
So you mentioned some of your individual supporters for trying to have a women empowering organization in a male-dominated society.
Yep.
Did you find any allies in organizations, and how did you engage with them and support them the other way?
Oh, you mean in Jordan? Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. As I said, you're going to have support. You always have to look at the good side all the time. Wherever you go, even if you go to really, really countries that are under war, you're going to have support coming for you. You need to just make sure that you are on a good term with these people, because they're going to help you grow and will help you also work on your plan as you grow. Definitely, SheFighter is so big in Jordan anyway. We're covering schools. We work with different organizations like UNHCR and Relief, like all these NGOs that we work with. And we are like everyone knows about us. We've been there for so many years. And you just, and of course, men and women support. At the beginning, there were not much people, but as you start growing and proving that your system is actually working, because people, it's like your parents, right? When you saw something, they're like, you don't want to spend a lot of time doing that. And when you grow, you're like, oh, you need our help? We have to be part of it. And it's exactly like, but your journey, you have to know this, your journey is not to prove to others. Your journey is just you have to go through this in order to, grow inside yourself. And once you do it, everything else will fall into, pieces, and you're going to find yourself inspiring like thousands of people or changing lives. But you don't have to worry about future. You don't have to worry about who's going to support or not. You just keep going with your path. Thanks.
Yeah, that's hard. It's easier said than done, I will say that much.
Yeah.
But I think, yes, that's...
It needs a lot of dedication and self-confidence.
Yes, yeah, the confidence to believe in your dream and your vision, absolutely. Okay, well, let's thank Lina for her time.
Thank you.